Welcome into the latest edition of the Big Dog Show with Marcedes Lewis. I'm David Kaplan. The Bears coming off a tough loss. What happened? I'm going to. Relax. Not my first rodeo there, kid. All right, 3, 2, 1. Welcome into the latest edition of the Big Dog Show with Marcedes Lewis. I'm David Kaplan. Bears coming off a tough game against the San Francisco 49ers. The Big Dog Show is brought to you by Ankin Law, 312-6 million for the great attorney, Howard Ankin, and your Chicagoland, Northwest Indiana Chevy dealers. They are the official truck partner of the Chicago Bears. Big Dog has a special guest, Megan Olivi, who was actually on the game call on Sunday in San Francisco and is also a UFC analyst. So we'll talk a whole bunch of stuff with her. But Big Dog, holy cow, man. I sat down, and when my son turned to me at 21-0 and goes, "Dad, are we ever going to win again?" I went, "Oh, God, not good." What happened?
Oh, man. Why'd you have to say that? I think it hits different when it's coming from kids.
Right.
You know, because when you think about kids and how they feel about, you know, their favorite players and sports and what they would want to do when they grow up, it's always like a childlike faith, right? And if he's turning to you and asking you, are we ever going to win a game again? Like, that's tough to kind of digest. And obviously, from outside looking in, like me, and, you know, that perspective is kind of tough. But I don't know, man. I don't expect to come out that way. I know we talked a little bit last night when I was on the plane. You know, it's one of those things I don't have all the answers, you know, and I'm not going to pretend like I do. But I do know it's something that can't be fixed in 4 weeks. You know, all we can do is just go out there and continue to try to put our best foot forward. But, you know, teams are coming in and, you know, obviously they're getting paid too to game plan and do their thing, and they're beating us to the punch. What do you do? You know?
You know, it was interesting to watch. Like, I see Caleb out there competing and trying, and the easy answer, well, boy, the offensive line didn't do a good job. He got sacked 7 times, and some of them I felt like he held the ball too long. It just seemed like it was from the jump not going to be our day. Fair?
Yeah. And then, you know, watching it from the sideline, you know, times when I'm not actually in the game, it just seemed like we were just getting beat to the punch. And, you know, whatever we were doing, I felt like they were one step ahead in certain aspects. And, you know, even from watching our defense on the field, it just felt like their offense happened to call the right play at the right time and would catch us in weird predicaments. And Kittle went crazy yesterday.
Whoa.
I mean, you know, they go into the game. You know, you got Debo in there. You kind of know what Debo is about, right? Running the ball, gadget guy, play action pass, strike routes. He didn't catch any of those. He didn't really get going too much. And you're like, okay, if we can keep Debo on the wraps, we got a pretty good shot. McCaffrey's not in the game. So the running game can't be too crazy. But that system that they have, the zone read, the outside zone running game with the passes off of it, it's just hard to defend when you got the run game going, and they got it going pretty early, and, you know, we just really didn't have no answer for it. So here we go again with 4 more games guaranteed, and, you know, it's about just staying stuck to the process and, you know, just trying to go out there and put your best foot forward.
One more before we bring your special guest in. Did you notice anything good, bad, off during the week? Obviously, Coach Eberflus was gone. It was the first full week with Thomas Brown. You had that mini bye since Thanksgiving. Did you notice anything in the building, or it was business as usual?
It was business as usual, but it's inevitable not to kind of keep an eye on like what's going on around you. Obviously, fire the head coach, interim coach in. You're trying to pick up on little things to see like what things are going to be changing. But we had a really good week of preparation. I felt like the energy in the building was really good. Practice was the best we've had in a while. So, you know, no excuses. I mean, you got to give credit to San Francisco. They were playing at home. That crowd gets crazy, especially when they get ahead, and they jumped up on us pretty quick. and they never look back. So, that's the way it goes sometimes, the NFL. And like I said, these issues are not going to be all fixed in 4 weeks.
Your special guest was on the call of the game on Sunday in San Francisco. She's also very, very well respected in the UFC world, which if somebody said, tell me what Marcedes Lewis' favorite sport is, I wouldn't say football. I'd probably say UFC, at least as a fan to sit and watch. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, that is fair. And I think, so I started training mixed martial arts in 2011. That first year, I just got addicted to it because it was something that I couldn't pick up right away. And so mentally, my mind was just always going. I could never, it was hard to stop the fight mentally with okay, I had jiu-jitsu this day. I couldn't pass guard. Why couldn't I pass guard? There were drills where I'd be on my back and I'm supposed to be able to take somebody else back and I couldn't quite get there. One of the cool things about BJJ and being on the ground and mixing it up is there's always an answer. If you can control your breathing, your thought processing, and just be in those moments, there's always an answer to get to where you need to go. And so for me, it's almost like when you're on a golf course and you get that one shot and that shot is just good enough to keep you coming back. That's how I felt. And then obviously that translated into the Muay Thai aspect of it, the wrestling aspect of it. So I've been going to UFC fights for a really long time. And like you said before, Megan is somebody that is well respected, not just in UFC, but she's doing her thing in the NFL now. And she's one of the hardest working women that, I know and have the privilege to know, and has been a really good resource for me and a really good friend of mine. So I'm excited to have her on.
All right, let's bring her in. It's Megan Olivi, who was on the call of the game on Fox yesterday. But yeah, UFC is a huge part of your life. Your husband is a very accomplished UFC fighter. So how'd you get to meet my guy, the big dog? Because when you meet him, you will never forget him.
No, never. And that was so kind. Thank you for saying that. Not me crying before I come on the show. Honestly, I think, first of all, he kind of stands out from our crowd. He's a little bit bigger than the average UFC fan. So we get a celebrity list every show, and we'd see his name on there. And literally, it's really cool because for years, Marcedes would be coming, and it wouldn't matter if it was a fight night, a pay-per-view, where kind of in the country it was. He'd be there, and he didn't just come for the last 3 fights, which a lot of people do who don't really know that much about the sport. It's kind of just like a see and be seen thing. He'd be there for the early prelims and know what was going on and why he liked a certain fighter in each fight. And, we just kind of got to know each other there. And when I started with NFL, it's been several years, but this is my first full-time season of all, 18 weeks. He's been so supportive and so great. And it's just nice to know that, I'm the new kid on the block in that realm. But when you have a familiar face or somebody who's rooting you on or you can use as a resource, it is so unbelievably helpful in a world that is a little bit overwhelming at times.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think knowing that aspect of it and how tough it is, obviously it's tough just for men getting in and transitioning and even athletes trying to get into the world. And there's almost a sense of, it's like for me, if I wanted to start tomorrow, right, I'm pretty sure that I could probably go in there and do that. But it's people that have been working their whole lives just to do this. So the competition aspect of it too is a little daunting if you let it, So as far as with you, I'm just, like I told you yesterday, just in gratitude and obviously watching you from afar and watching you do your thing. And it's just been really cool to see.
Yeah, we're lucky we're friends. It's been really great. The Octagon brings people together.
No, for sure. So what inspired you to kind of pursue your career in sports analysis, and then maybe share a little bit your journey?
Yeah. So my road was not typical. I had no idea I wanted to do this for a living at all. I was a rabid sports fan my entire life. I played sports. I was a sports household. My brother was a very accomplished wrestler. I played sports growing up. My dad was a wrestler. My grandfather was a boxer. But I had very terrible preconceived notions about what it meant to be on television, particularly a woman in sports television. So it wasn't until I was the end of my junior year of college where I was always at my internship talking to the crew I worked with about the Yankees or the Giants. And they'd be like, why don't you just do that for a living? Like, what are you doing, with pursuing political science? Like, all you do is talk about sports. Do that. And I was like, no, I have a brain and all this stuff. And I really didn't know what it meant. And so I started doing a little investigation. I was like, oh, okay, this is like a real job and they work really hard and, nobody's telling them what to say. There was all these things that I could break down in terms of barriers within my own mind to those goals. And so I decided to go to graduate school to make sure I had some sort of degree to back up what I wanted to do. And then I literally started as an intern, getting people coffee, printing out scripts. I took a 4:12 a.m. train from New Jersey to Manhattan to be at work by 5:15, 5:30. I was getting coffee as soon as it opened at Dina DeLuca, over there by the Radio City Music Hall. And I just took one step after another. I said yes to the opportunities that came up. Like I did lacrosse, women's college lacrosse for Verizon's channel.
Wow.
And that was my first like on-air real sideline gig. And I didn't know anything, but I was like, I can learn, I can work hard, I can be prepared. And it was just kind of like one thing after another. And and then I got the offer to move to Las Vegas. I was super poor in New York City, like barely making ends meet. And they said, do you want to move to Vegas? I'm like, I can just come back and be poor if it doesn't work out. Like,
right.
What is there to lose? I'm not leaving anything behind here besides, obviously my friends and family, which was huge. But yeah, I moved to Vegas 14 years ago. Yeah, 14 years ago this month and never really looked back.
And so that's a crazy story and stuff that I had no idea about. And the way you do it is almost like as if you're just slicing through butter. You know what I mean? Like you were born to do this. But who would have known that it took a process even to get to that point to kind of convince yourself that like, was born to do this. You brought up barriers. Is there anything like specific as far as challenges that you face breaking into the sports world?
I think at first, sometimes there's preconceived notions and sometimes those preconceived notions are correct. But in my case, I show up, I'm this young woman from New York City. I'm on the West Coast. And I'm showing up at these UFC events and people are like, why is she here? What is she now? Little did they know I grew up on a wrestling mat and, my grandfather was an accomplished boxer. So I had this innate background to really understand the sport. But I think you have to be better prepared. You have to be ready for anything at those moments because it's kind of like in the beginning, everyone wants to test you. But genuinely, and I truly mean this, it probably only took a couple of UFC events for people to be like, oh, okay, she's not done. Like, yeah, she knows what she's doing. She's working really hard. She respects herself. She respects everybody around her. And then, and then it kind of took off from there. I've always just tried to be somebody easy to be around and a good team player. And then for the NFL, that is a little more daunting because so much work is done on Sunday mornings.
I know.
And, you guys are but I'm also at work. And it's like this fine line of like, where can I try and get info without being annoying? And, who else can I talk to on the sideline? So my favorite thing is like to immediately try and talk to whoever's doing radio for the teams, who's on the sidelines as well, and make sure like they can come to me. Hey, did you get the info on this? Do you have what you need? But also I can come to them. And it's been really nice. But yeah, there were some barriers in the beginning, but I'd say they're much more few and far between now at this point.
Yeah. Go ahead, Cap.
I was just going to say, you mentioned doing lacrosse, and I got a call one day. Can you call these lacrosse games? I knew nothing about lacrosse.
Right.
And I went, yeah, because I've always was right. Never say no. Don't say, well, I could try. They open the door that much, you kick it in. And so I taped a couple lacrosse games off ESPN. I got the lingo down, and I went, okay, now I just got to get to know, is it Marcedes Lewis, the football player? Well, who's that comp in the lacrosse game? That guy's been in the league forever. I'm talking to that dude. And then let's go and just bring passion to what you're doing. And it works.
Exactly. Yeah. And when you're at that point in your career, you are passionate about it because it's like an opportunity. So it's not like, you have to fake it. You're just like, oh, please God, don't see through this veneer that like, I'm not an encyclopedia of lacrosse right now.
Right.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a great point that you bring up. Like, obviously, Cap, if you're looking for the guy that has been in it for a while, kind of like how I have, and you're passionate about it, that makes the guy on my end want to interact more and give you more juice, right? It's almost like the young rookie or first and second year player, if he's asking the right questions and if he shows that he really wants to be great, then I'm going to give him the juice to be great. But if you're just a guy that's just looking to get by and wear a jersey and you just want to be in a locker room, be loud and play music, then I'm probably not going to, be attracted to that type of energy. And so with that being said, I mean, I don't know, Cap, if you like have watched Megan do her thing, like on the UFC, cards and shows, but it's talking about the education of it. Like she's like this,
right?
And like
second nature.
The guys are walking out from the back and getting ready for their fight, and like the camera is kind of like at an aerial view like this while Megan is doing her thing, and then it kind of like pans out, and so she just keeps going, giving her nuggets. Like Megan, how much information do you get in those fighter meetings? And then what's the percentage of information that you get after that? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I definitely know what you mean. So I feel like I never have enough information, but yet 98% of the stuff I have doesn't get used. It's like, oh, cool, I had these amazing stories, and there's some pay-per-views where I'm like, I can't wait to tell the story. Nobody knows it. I can't wait. But it's like, oh, we went to 17 decisions and it got cut. Fighter meetings are really great, particularly when it's myself, Anik, and Daniel Cormier. I think athletes feel very safe with us. They feel like it's a trusted place. And so they're willing to open up more and divulge a little bit more, which is always really helpful. And then what I like to do is wait until they're rehydrated after weigh-ins and then just like have some chats. Like, First of all, how's your family? How you moved? How's life? How's the new house? I always wanted with Joe, like everyone to obviously respect his incredible talents in the octagon, but I wanted them to care about Joseph, the human being. And so that's kind of how I approach every scenario. And so we get so much information, and we get so many times guys will be like, yeah, X, Y, and Z, but don't say any of it. And so you don't, it's not worth.
It's background.
Exactly. And it's not worth breaking their
losing
trust.
that relationship.
Yeah. And so we get so much. And then for me, a lot of those walkouts, the maximum time I can use is 36 seconds. And so you're trying to say, like, what can I get out there that will make the world care about this individual in 36 seconds? And that's usually how I try to frame whatever I'm saying on air. But, and then sometimes they'll be like, we have a lot of time to kill. You need to give us a report on this. And so that's where, your hard work and your preparation comes in, because okay, no problem. I got that. Like, oh, this guy's walking out now and John has to go to the bathroom. I got it. No problem. It's just those kind of things that you learn as you get older, but like the same principles in the beginning apply. It's just like have passion and don't let anyone outwork you or out prepare you.
I definitely can attest to that, my guy.
Yeah. So let me ask you, your husband, you mentioned Joseph, that's your husband.
Yeah.
He is an accomplished UFC fighter. What is it like? I've got to leave on whatever day, Friday, Saturday. I got a football game on Sunday. He's busy training. Like, take us inside the personal life, balancing what I call a power couple in sports.
Thank you. Well, he's retired now, thank God. So life is a little bit easier. I didn't realize how stressful it was. I knew it was stressful, and it took years off my life, and I have a lot of gray hair.
You were in it, but you were just in it.
Yeah, exactly. And you're kind of just like living it. And then when he retired, I remember the first couple of fights afterwards, I came home and I was like, how did you do that for a living? Like, that's dangerous. And he's like, I know, it's so dangerous. What was I thinking? And so you just kind of get into a different mind frame. But Joe is literally the best. Like, he is so excited for me to go. Like, I had a double weekend. I went from the pay-per-view to Marcedes' game. And like, no one was more excited than my husband for me to have those opportunities and more supportive. And how can I help? Because, through his 15-year career in mixed martial arts, that was my role. How can I help? What can I do? How can I make your life easier? How can I be a fourth cornerman for you? And just provide things that he doesn't have to worry about. And so it's been an incredible partnership. But the way he carried himself in the sport through good and bad gave me such an example of like how I can make sure I'm treating every athlete that comes across my plate. Like, I've interviewed his opponents, guys he's beat, guys he's lost to, people he had rivalries with, and never did I have a problem with any single one of them because I'm giving them the same treatment as if somebody's talking to Joe. And I never want them to say like, well, his wife did this or, whatever it might be. I want them to always feel like, regardless of the scenario, that I'm a person that they're going to be okay with talking on air.
That's really cool. And I would think, it's easier said than done. And you make it, the way you speak about it is so eloquent in a way that it's like, you would think that it'd be easy, but that shit is not easy. And like what is, have you ever faced like pushback or bias in the industry, and like, how did you overcome it? Like, obviously, if you were unattractive doing it, it would be totally different, right? But the fact that you're attractive, you're intelligent, your husband did it. So the energy there with guys, like, it's just, I'm just thinking in my mind, I would probably lose my mind. Like, what was your, like, how did you navigate that space?
I think just always trying to like lead with grace. I think guys, like I've always been with Joe. I've never not had this job and not been with Joseph. I moved to Las Vegas in part for the opportunity, but also like Joe was in Sacramento and it was a little closer to this guy I really liked, and let's see what happens. And so
that was Team Alpha Male, right?
Yes.
Team Alpha Male, his team that he was with, Uriah Faber, was that his gym?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So Uriah Faber has a gym, and like Cody Garbrandt is a really good friend of mine. Who's with Team Alpha Male, and that's where he was fighting at, and that's what she's referring to.
Yeah, and so I always just tried to carry myself with respect, and I don't think I gave a presentation of myself that is untrue. I think people already know, like, hey, I respect myself, I'm going to respect you. And so nobody like ever tried anything silly, They were always really good with me. And then I think even like he coached The Ultimate Fighter against Henry Cejudo, which Cap is like, I'm sure you've seen it, but it's a reality show, but they film for like 8 to 16 weeks and they're around each other all the time. And usually it's two coaches that don't like each other. And that was the scenario. And so at one point, Henry was like a very heated rival, but he knew like I wasn't going to take that out on him. And so I think when there'd be a little bit of pushback, the way I carried myself in the scenario always kind of helped. And then we got over whatever hurdle that was. And I remember after he fought Henry, he came over to me and he gave me a hug and he said, "Your husband hits like a Mack truck." And like it kind of, everything was kind of over then, and so you're always going to kind of come across these scenarios. Every once in a while they'd be like, "You're not going to say this to his teammate who's fighting me." I'm like, "Why? I would never do that." And then as you start to build trust, I think like all that pushback kind of goes away. But it's all about, to me, like how you carry yourself, because there's a lot that people can garner from a scenario without even talking to you and just kind of seeing how you move. And so I've always tried to just make sure that it's the right steps.
Yeah.
What was the sideline like yesterday? You're trying to work both sidelines. One has got a decided advantage in the score pretty early. How do you navigate that where, okay, I got to go to that sideline because they're winning, because guys don't want to talk. I was a coach in college. You don't want to talk when you're getting pounded.
Yeah, well, I don't talk to them during the game, so that helps a lot. You know what's the crazy thing that dictates a lot of where we go is injuries. So we see the blue tent pop up, we're running over there. We see somebody down on the field, we're kind of running to follow that, because all of that information is usually fed by the sideline reporter, whether or not you actually hear it from them. So there were a couple times yesterday, like Isaac Garendo, he quickly went into the Niners tent, and then I thought he was walking back to the bench. So I told the truck, like, "Hey, he's in the tent. They got a camera on him." And they said, "Oh, he's out. He looks like he's walking to the bench." And I was like, "Nope, he's going to the locker room." And so they can get cameras and kind of follow all of that. So when you have a game that isn't necessarily like super close, there are also things to garner from both sides. Like, how are they interacting with each other? What are they saying to one another? Who's warming up that maybe wasn't necessarily going to play at this point in the game? And so I think there's always something to be gained and to be learned. But I also try like to not repeat things that you might hear or see guys do that doesn't need to be said.
That's why people trust you.
Yeah. Thank you. So it's about using discretion as well. I mean, it's my job to give as much information to the truck as I can. but sometimes things are just the way they are. You know what I mean? And so you just try to guide it. And football's crazy. So you never really know. It could be the score, at the start of the fourth, and then at the end of the fourth, it's a totally different score. So
Sure.
yeah, just trying to like not lose sight of it. But working two sidelines is nuts. It really is. I mean, the football feels gigantic. It's nuts.
How do you balance objectivity with your personal preference as a fan?
I mean, I feel like once you have a husband that fights somebody else in a locked cage for a living, like you can be objective about anything else. Like I don't, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I have no bias about any of these games that I cover. There's certainly guys in your heart, you're like, oh, I hope they do well because they're good people, or their family, or they just have had a struggle or whatever it might be. So there's certainly times where your like heart tugs a certain direction. But in terms of doing the job, like genuinely, you're not trying to punch my husband. I do not care what happens. like, I don't. The only time I've ever cared about an outcome for anything I've ever worked is when Joe fought. And that was not something I ever hid. I immediately told the Fertittas and Dana White, like, hey, I just want you to know I am dating a guy on your roster. If you want me to come on board, that's fine. But I need to be very clear about it. And so, yeah, so like in terms of present day, I think everybody, has guys or girls or, football players or coaches that you're just like, oh, I have a connection with them. Or, I think they're a really, really great person. Or they took time out to talk to me. Like, this is great. But at the end of the day, like, that doesn't serve them either to make it just kind of seem like, hey, they're my favorite. And so, it's the objectivity now at this point is quite easy.
There's a young lady out there listening and says, God, I want to do what she does. Mm-hmm. Or I actually met with a girl the other day. She was an intern at the radio station I work at. And she said, I'm the play-by-play voice for Northwestern University women's basketball.
Cool.
She said, I want to be a professional play-by-play person and do sidelines. If you're speaking to someone like that, a high school girl who says, God, I'd like to be like Megan, what advice would you give them?
Do the work, do every single step, even though you so badly probably want to skip a bunch, or social media makes you think that you don't need them, or you see one person ahead of you that you feel like you're more talented than. Like every single step will teach you a lesson, whether, it's getting coffee and printing papers, or it's learning to actually do proper research, whatever it might be. Every single step is important. And then when you get to the position you want to be in, you are better equipped to help others. I would say besides that, though, my other key thing, sorry, I don't know if that's my audio. My other key thing would be learn to produce. I think to be a good storyteller on camera, you have to understand how to produce a story, how to tell a story, and what that means. And so a lot of people just want to put focus on like, well, I want to be on TV. Like the reps come, like you'll get better at that.
Yeah.
But if you don't know how to tell a story, or you don't know why you're telling a story, or if you start in local news and you are a one-man band, you got to carry your own camera and write your own, you need to learn how to do that. Like John and I write all of our own scripts. Nobody helps us with anything. We memorize everything. There's no teleprompters. There's nothing. And that is an important skill because we know how to write for TV and we know how to produce. We know, okay, well, I'm going to talk about this because we have, for instance, I talked about Pantoja and Jose Aldo this past weekend, because I knew we had just gotten these photos of them when they were young. Yeah. So it was like, okay, I want to make sure I can tell a story where we have great images to back it up. And so I would just say, like, do the work and truly, if you really want to be on camera, learn to produce first. And then that will take you much further than just like reps off a teleprompter.
That's some great insight. Is there anybody that you worked with that kind of like, or that you have now as like a mentor, that you've had to kind of help you kind of navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of like one of the first, I was the first one to do this role for the UFC in terms of what you see now on like a pay-per-view broadcast, but people like Karen Bryant, Evelyn Rodriguez, and Carolyn Pierce, like we were all kind of doing this together. Karen was in the industry before us and she was really helpful, like even stuff like in scrums, making sure we had room to fit our arm in with a microphone, So they were all like super pivotal to me and still are to this day. They're people I'm really close with. And then I've been fortunate to have Kelly Ripa give me some great advice throughout the years, both on a professional and personal basis. She's absolutely incredible. She's a powerhouse at what she does, and she is so generous with her time and thoughts and considerations to things. And yeah, and then all the women at NFL on Fox, like everybody you see on a sideline on a Sunday for Fox, they are all just tremendous, willing to help, friendly, full of advice. Like they have been so great, and they've made the transition over to football, particularly full time, a lot easier as well.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah,
What's
they're
your
great.
favorite game or event you've ever covered? You went, that was awesome.
Probably, oh God, this is going to be a controversial answer, but like a lot of Conor McGregor stuff. You know, when he was at the peak of his fame. I mean, when he fought Jose Aldo, we went on a world tour. We went to 3 continents. I think it was 9 countries in 11 days. It was nuts. Like, it was nuts. And then the fight, the way we had this buildup, and then the way it ended was insane. I did the world tour with him and Floyd Mayweather. I was Conor's reporter during that fight. That was pretty nuts as well. And then when he fought it, I think when we got mixed martial arts legalized in New York and we had our first event at Madison Square Garden, you know, personally, I used to grow up going to events there. So that was really close to my heart. And then Conor that night did something that no one had ever done by winning 2 world titles, you know, consecutive. He was a champion at 145 and 155 at the same time, and that had never been done. And so, you know, a lot of those big moments, it's when, you know, you felt like the whole world was watching. And I would say the other one that stands out to me is Fight Island, the first pay-per-view we did there. I don't know if you guys remember, but during COVID, you know, people were kind of scoffing at the idea of like, okay, Fight Island, and people were making funny t-shirts and stuff about it. But we went there and it was like we were on another planet. I mean, it was literally insanity. And we were all very scared, and we were working crazy hours because we were in Abu Dhabi, but we had to keep the show on North American time. And, you know, getting tested twice a day and quarantining in our rooms in this little 3-mile radius we could all live in. And you knew the entire world was watching, and they were. I got bombarded with questions. How did you do this? How did you guys pull that off? How did you accomplish this? You know, for other broadcasters to try to get back to work. Yeah. And so that was a really special moment. That was a time that I will never forget. I actually sometimes am like, was that real?
I was just about to say that. Like, you want to see something really dope happen, just tell Dana that he can't do something. Mm-hmm. You know, like it. I remember watching that and just hearing everything surrounding the event and getting it ready. And obviously at that time, I was still in Green Bay at that time, Cap, and like the COVID test that we had to do every single day, sometimes twice a day. You go into the shed and you got to go to practice and then meetings. We can't sit by each other and wearing masks. Like, add all of that, and then you go fight somebody. You're going to bleed in that octagon. You're like, football is a little different. Most guys wear gloves. We have helmets on. So like, as far as like the contact, yeah, we're going to hit each other. There may be some type of sweat exchange, but you're still almost fully covered. You're not on the ground wrestling. You're not jujitsu. You're not punching each other, splitting eyes open. Like it was really crazy to see. And like, to be there would have been really awesome. And like, now you're a part of that. Like, that's cool.
I think I became a better broadcaster because of doing that. Tried doing a talk show 3 hours a day, 5 days a week with no sports for 3 months.
Oh, God.
You better be able to come up with topics and talk and be entertaining, or people are like, I'm out.
I'm out of there. So, Megan, okay, we're going to switch gears before we let you get out of here. So, whether past, present, or future, and you had to give an interview to any athlete, who would it be right now?
Okay. This is the weird answer, but I'm going to say Roger Maris. I grew up a gigantic Yankees fan.
What a great answer.
No, thank you.
Just to let you know, the baseball world, Cap is super indulged.
I did the Cubs for 25 years.
Oh, amazing. Okay, yeah. So I would say Roger Maris. The Yankees were my first love in life. I mean, don't even talk to me about this year. Joseph and I went to the World Series. I mean, yeah. But I don't know if you've ever seen the movie 61, but Roger Maris was kind of like vilified a lot by the press, and he was this really, really good dude and just hitting home runs, you know, just trying to play baseball, do what he loved, and he was very talented. And him and Mickey Mantle were actually friends, and it was, you know, but it was kind of illustrated in a very different way. And so my favorite thing is to like get to the human behind the athlete. And so to be able to sit down with him and like get the world to know him as a person, as opposed to just the ball player or the painted picture that the press had given him, I think that would be who I would choose.
That was one of the things, the genesis for wanting to do this with Big Dog, because how many guys play 19 freaking years? I'm not talking about a punter or a kicker.
Right. He's not long snapping.
I'm talking about a guy who's got to play in a violent position. And as my partner Ryan and I had gone out and had dinner with him multiple times and just talked to him, the depth of knowledge about life that he gained by being a professional football player, what he overcame as a child, like, it's so much more interesting just going, what was it like playing in Jackson? Who cares? I want to hear more about his story. What makes him no one else has done what that guy's done.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's and obviously, like, I'm grateful for every day, and I feel like I have to earn it every day, and I work like I owe somebody something, and not the other way around. And I've always been that way, and I think that's the catalyst for being where I am in this moment, is that I know that nobody's going to outwork me. And I put that to the test every day, and, obviously there's other factors to why when I wake up in the morning, I get out of bed, why I do it the way I do it. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity. Because where I'm from, like, you don't really have those opportunities. In some way, somehow I found a way to like make it out. Like, my mom had me, she was 15 years old. I was in a abusive relationship for the first 3.5 years of my life. And then she had my brother when she was 18. And so like my childhood was just unconventional. I was forced to grow up really quick. I was forced to really look in the mirror and confront the truth that if I don't make it out myself, we're not going to be able to do this, right? Because we're just set up to fail. The system is set up that way. I have my granny who kicked my mom out because she was pregnant with me. And then my granny's husband, who was making passes at my mom. And you know how it is, like back in that day, like the women are more like insecure and they feel like they absolutely need the man to try to kind of like validate themselves that like it doesn't matter about your kids. And so we kicked my mom out. We're bouncing around. We live in a car for a while. My mom get her first apartment without even having like a real job. She got it with like a Social Security card, paying like $250 a month. Section 8, just crazy. And then there's one incident where my mom got beat up really bad. Like the guy broke her jaw, pulled her hair out. It was crazy. And then my grandmother led us back home. And this is around like, I was probably like 4 or 5 years old. She led us back in the home. And then my mom at that point was working a couple jobs, trying to just save money, make ends meet to get out my granny's house. And then we bounced around for a little bit. And she ended up getting married when I was like 9 or 10. She ended up getting a divorce after 26 years. It was just, it just ran its course. And it was just, it was just time. I think at that point, they kind of just grew apart amicably. And needless to say, like, I've learned so much throughout that time. And it's made me who I am today, like as a person. And I've been able to show up authentically and not just being a student athlete in high school, being the best I could be in college. And then now it's just like a microcosm of like what I've been through. And now I can give it back to the guys around me. And I think at this point in my career, this is just football paying me back and me still busting my butt to earn my keep. And, here you are, or here I am with 19 years in the books is pretty crazy.
I just want to tell you that, you said you're able to give back to the guys. Like, I spoke to Caleb this week and he mentioned you and how your lockers are like 2 or 3 apart, and that he's always asking you questions and he's not scared to ever ask you anything, and that you take your time and you give him advice. and not just on a football field basis, but also on a personal level. And he was so complimentary of what he's able to garner from his friendship with you, both as a teammate and as a person. And so, I hope you hear those things more often because they are resonating with the people around you for sure.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And, obviously he's one of my boys, and, football has made me obviously a good football player. We get that, that's cool. But if that left tomorrow, I would still be okay because it's made me an even better person. The prospects that football presents, you can't get in the real world, right? In the real world, you're kind of learning as you go and kind of touching the fire. You got to touch it to know that it's hot. And football, it's right in your face. Everything that you could potentially go through in life is going to happen, and you're forced to, with these decisions that you have to make in order to advance in what you do. And it's the one sport that you can go in there and be like, okay, if I work this hard, I'm definitely going to get this out of it, right? And football is a sport about grown men going out there and taking what they want. And that's the tutelage that I've come up under, right? And I'm grateful to have been drafted in 2006, where the grind was very much real. 2-a-days did exist in a crazy way. And sometimes it was 3-a-days. And now here I am in this world where this is dessert for me. It's guys that are complaining, man, we got to practice. Are you kidding me? We have one practice a day plus a walkthrough, and this is how you.
They have no idea, big dog.
No idea. And so,
I'm older than you, obviously. I played Division III. We had 3-a-days, full pads, all.
And that's how it used to be. And part of my giving them the education of the game is letting them know that hey, we get to do this. We don't have to do this. There's so many people that are sitting at home right now wishing that they could do this. These windows close very quick. So you better take advantage while you have it. And if you do it the right way, you can extend that window for as long as you're doing it the right way, right? But as soon as you start feeling I'm not having fun, I'm complaining every day, I don't know why we have to do this or why we have to go to practice, you should probably go find another profession because you might get hurt out there with that mentality. So I'm very grateful. And Megan, I'm very grateful for you coming on and sharing your insight. And obviously we've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I appreciate you making the time because I know you're superwoman out there, and it's been very, very exciting to see.
You guys are the best. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm coming back anytime. I'm making Joe come on next time with me. And Cap, you got to come to a fight, all right? So you let me know when you're coming.
We're going to come out there. Big Dog said as soon as the season's over, we're meeting him in Vegas.
Yeah.
So perfect.
We'll go to dinner. And the other thing is, I know you're a Yankee fan. I'm sorry that Juan Soto's now a Met.
You know what? It's fine. It's Bobby Bonilla. It's going to be fine. Everything's fine.
$755 million. Wow.
No, I didn't. It's fine. Everything's all right. It's not even thinking about it. Thanks.
Where can people follow you on social?
Just at Megan Olivi on Twitter, which I don't really use, but Instagram I do use. So at Megan Olivi there. And and always, if you're listening and there's anything I can help with, feel free to send me a DM. I'm always open for advice or whatever else I can help throughout the journey.
And we will send you a link to this. If you'd share it, that'd be awesome.
You got it.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate you, Meg.
Bye.
See you, Meg. Megan Olivi. She was awesome. Really, really cool.
She's the best, bro. She's that's how you want to be right there. And you can tell that she's just done it the right way. She's done it her way. Her husband, who's super gracious and was a really great fighter when he fought. A lot of respect for Joseph, and it's really cool to have them on or have her on.
All right, you got Monday Night Football, and you got 3 games in 16 days. You ready?
Yeah, I was born for this, man.
I think it'd be super cool. If you have a process, which you have, to go, oh, what a great challenge. Monday, Sunday, Thursday. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's different now because back in the day, we didn't have Thursday games. Right. And I feel like the way it's set up, it was never this consecutive like that. That's just something new. And with TV deals and things like that, it's causing for us to play more often with, not many days to recover in between. So as you mentioned, the process is always super important. That process being taking care of your body, getting off your feet, And then mentally kind of like relaxing a little bit. Like this game is, it'll take a lot out of you if you let it. And so you got to make sure that you're pouring back into your body mentally, keeping people around you that are going to build you up and keep you going when things aren't going well. So I'm fortunate enough to have that. And, you know, I look forward to Monday night.
Hey, man, have a great rest of your day, a great week, okay? Stay safe and healthy.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you, man.
I swear I shoot like Berettas. Yeah, yeah. They getting nervous, I seen it. What I seen.